If you want to know why you are feeling anxious or depressed or just utterly overwhelmed today, you probably shouldn't be looking at your brain.
Right, which sounds completely counterintuitive to everything we've been taught.
Exactly. I mean, you should really be looking at your intestines
Right.
because over 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut.
90%, yeah.
That is the crucial primary neurotransmitter responsible for mood regulation, the thing that makes you feel stable and okay. It's made in the gut, not the brain.
It completely upends the traditional narrative. I mean, when we think of serotonin, we almost reflexively picture the brain, you know?
Yeah, you imagine synapses firing up there in your skull.
Exactly, synapses in the cerebral cortex. But the biological reality is that the vast majority of your body's feel-good chemical is being manufactured in the dark, acidic environment of your digestive tract.
That is just wild to think about. Anyway, welcome to the deep dive. We are so glad you are here with us today.
Glad to be here.
If you are listening to this, you are probably what we like to call the learner. You know, you are looking for maximum knowledge, multiple perspectives, and the actual mechanics behind how things work.
Right, but without the dreaded info overload.
Exactly. You want to understand the machinery of your own life. So today, we are tearing into a stack of fascinating notes from Gary Brecka's Ultimate Human podcast.
And this specific set of notes explores this shocking, really undeniable inseparability of our gut health and our mental health.
So the mission today is to shortcut you to a realization that is, frankly, creating a massive paradigm shift in modern medicine.
Yeah, optimizing your digestion isn't just about avoiding a stomachache or, like, bloating anymore.
No, not at all. We are going to look at the evidence showing that the state of your gut is arguably the most powerful lever you can pull to enhance your
Mood, your mental clarity, and your emotional resilience, too.
Okay, let's unpack this opening stat. Because if 90% of the chemical that dictates whether I am having a good day or a devastatingly bad day is swimming around in my stomach, we have to rethink things.
We have to rethink entirely what a mental health crisis actually is.
Exactly. And looking at the notes we pulled for this, I mean, the sheer scale of the global crisis right now is heavy.
It is. The context here is absolutely crucial. If we look back to 1992, the World Federation for Mental Health established World Mental Health Day.
Right.
And, the goal was to raise awareness,
Yeah.
to remove the stigma, and just get people talking about it.
Which was a great goal.
It was. But here we are, decades later, and despite all that awareness, the numbers from the World Health Organization are painting a very, very grim picture of our collective well-being.
Yeah, the WHO data shows nearly 1 billion people are currently living with a mental health disorder.
1 billion.
That is 1 in 8 people on the entire planet. And globally, depression is now the single leading cause of disability.
Which is a huge distinction.
I have to admit, when I first read that, I paused. Like, not back pain, not heart disease, not arthritis.
It's
depression.
That framing depression as a disability is essential to understand. We have this cultural habit of categorizing mental health as just an emotional struggle.
Right. Yeah, like it's just a lack of willpower or some invisible psychological hurdle.
Exactly. You tell people to cheer up or, push through it.
Yeah, just get over it.
Yeah. But the epidemiological data shows it is a systemic physical failure that profoundly incapacitates people. It stalls economies, it fractures communities.
And it fundamentally alters entire family structures. And the thing is, it doesn't just reduce the quality of your life, it literally steals years from it.
Yes. That is the scariest part.
There is a 2022 meta-analysis published in Lancet Psychiatry that we really need to talk about.
Oh, that study is a wake-up call.
It really is. They looked at individuals with serious mental illness and found a reduced life expectancy of 10 to 20 years compared to the general population.
And just to put that 10 to 20-year reduction in perspective, that is a drop in life expectancy comparable to or even exceeding the effects of a lifetime of heavy, chronic smoking.
Okay, wait. I was reading through this and I just hit a wall. Help me understand the mechanism here.
Sure.
Because if I am severely depressed, my heart doesn't just spontaneously forget how to beat, right?
Right.
If I'm dealing with chronic anxiety, my lungs don't just stop processing oxygen. How does a disorder categorized as mental limit physical life expectancy so dramatically?
It's a great question.
Like, what is actually killing people?
It is a physiological cascade. And it starts with how the body's alarm system is wired.
Okay.
When someone experiences chronic stress, anxiety, or depression, the body perceives that emotional pain as a physical, existential threat.
So it doesn't know the difference between an email and a tiger.
Exactly. The primitive parts of our brain do not differentiate between the stress of a looming deadline or, say, social isolation and the stress of being chased by a predator.
So the body just hits the panic button regardless of the source.
Yes, it activates what we call the HPA axis. That stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is. But basically, this system floods the bloodstream with cortisol, which is our primary stress hormone, along with adrenaline.
Okay.
Now, a spike of cortisol is brilliant if there is an actual physical danger you need to fight or flee from. It mobilizes glucose for quick energy.
So you can run fast?
Right. It alters immune system responses, and it suppresses digestive and reproductive systems, so you can focus entirely on survival.
But I am guessing the problem is when that alarm never turns off.
That is the fatal flaw in the modern environment. If that alarm is blaring 24/7 because of chronic anxiety or severe depression, that is bad news.
Because you're constantly flooded with it.
Exactly. That constant, unyielding flood of cortisol becomes incredibly toxic to the human body. It fundamentally changes how your cells operate.
Give me a tangible example of what that toxicity looks like inside the body. Like, what is it actually breaking?
But chronically elevated cortisol leads directly to systemic low-grade inflammation.
Okay.
Your immune system, which is normally your defense force, becomes confused and overactive. White blood cells start releasing inflammatory cytokines into the bloodstream constantly.
Oh, wow.
And this chronic inflammation acts like sandpaper on the inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium.
So the whole cardiovascular system is basically being worn down from the inside out, like a literal sandpaper.
Yes. And that endothelial damage directly accelerates atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries.
All right.
It makes the body highly susceptible to insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. It even impairs the immune system's ability to fight off actual infections.
So those 10 to 20 years of lost life expectancy isn't just a mystery number.
Not at all. It is the natural endpoint of a body that has been bathed in corrosive stress hormones and systemic inflammation for decades.
So heart attacks, strokes, autoimmune failures.
Yeah, they are the physical manifestation of chronic mental distress.
Wait, so are we treating mental health completely backward?
In many ways, yes, we are.
Because if stress and depression are triggering this massive physical inflammatory reaction in the body, and if 90% of our mood-regulating serotonin is made in the gut, why do we focus almost exclusively on treating the head?
Well, we are dealing with the legacy of a philosophical concept called Cartesian dualism.
Cartesian dualism. Okay.
Yeah, going all the way back to René Descartes. Western medicine essentially divided the mind and the body into two totally separate entities.
Right, like they don't talk to each other.
Exactly. We treated the brain as this isolated, mysterious command center that just floats in a vacuum. And the body was seen as just a separate mechanical vehicle.
So if you felt sad, it was purely a brain problem. And if your stomach hurt, it was a body problem.
That was the operating theory for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
But modern biological psychiatry, and specifically the research we are diving into today, shows that it's completely wrong.
We've been trying to put out a massive physiological fire by only focusing on the smoke.
That's a perfect way to put it. The notes make it abundantly clear our mental health is inseparably linked to our overall physical health.
You cannot treat the mind without treating the physical environment it relies upon.
Exactly.
It is a total shift in perspective. And it demands that, if the body and the mind are that intimately linked, there has to be a physical bridge connecting them.
There absolutely does.
Like they aren't just communicating by magic. There has to be a biological highway. And that brings us to what the scientific community is now referring to as our second brain.
Right. And the term second brain is not just some clever metaphor for marketing a biology book. No, it is a profound anatomical reality. We are talking about the enteric nervous system.
Okay, tell us about that.
This is a vast, incredibly complex network of roughly 500 million neurons residing directly in the lining of the human gut.
500 million neurons.
Yeah.
So the exact same type of cells that make up the gray matter in our skulls are just like woven into the tissue of our intestines?
They are. And they are operating with an incredible amount of autonomy, too. Yeah. This second brain doesn't just passively wait for the brain in your head to tell it what to do. It senses, it reacts, and it manages a vast microscopic ecosystem.
Ah, the gut microbiome.
Exactly. We are talking about trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, all living in this delicate, bustling society inside your digestive tract.
Trillions. I mean, it is hard to even conceptualize a number that big.
It really is.
The way I like to visualize it, because otherwise it just becomes abstract math in my head, is to imagine that inside your stomach and intestines, you have this incredibly complex, microscopic pharmaceutical manufacturing plant.
Oh, like that.
And this plant employs trillions of individual workers.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. The microbes aren't just hitching a ride in there. They are actively working.
So when this manufacturing plant has a diverse, healthy workforce, like when you have thousands of different species of good bacteria doing their specialized jobs, they are the ones actively synthesizing the chemicals that make you feel human. They are on the assembly line producing serotonin for your mood stability. They are producing dopamine for your motivation and pleasure.
And they are synthesizing GABA, too.
Right, which is the neurotransmitter that calms your nervous system down.
Let's look closely at how that serotonin production actually works, just to ground this analogy in some hard biology.
Yeah, do it.
Inside the lining of your gut, you have these specialized cells called enterochromaffin cells. Think of them as the chemical storage tanks of your factory.
Okay, I am with you. Storage tanks.
Now, the beneficial bacteria in your microbiome take the food you eat, particularly certain amino acids like tryptophan, and they metabolize it.
Yeah.
And as they do that, they produce specific chemical signals that tell these enterochromaffin cells to synthesize and release massive amounts of serotonin.
Wow. So without the bacterial workers processing the raw materials and sending the signals, the tanks just remain empty.
Exactly. The system stalls out.
Okay, so they package these chemicals, and then they have to ship them up to the brain. But how? Like, serotonin can't just float up through your neck.
No, it can't. The primary shipping route and communication line they use is called the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yes, it is the longest cranial nerve in the body, wandering all the way from the brainstem down through the chest and directly into the abdomen, wrapping around the intestines.
It's literally like a thick bundle of biological fiber optic cables connecting the two brains.
It is the ultimate superhighway of the
Yeah.
gut-brain axis. And it is a two-way communication system.
Okay.
The brain sends signals down to the gut, which is why, when you are anxious about a public speaking event, you get an immediate physical sensation.
Oh, like butterflies in your stomach or nausea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here is the really critical part. 80% of the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve are afferent.
Afferent. What does that mean?
It means they carry signals from the gut up to the brain.
Wait, 80%?
Yes.
So the gut is doing way more talking and the brain is doing way more listening.
By a massive margin. The gut is constantly sending chemical instructions, neurotransmitters, and inflammatory signals up to the brain, which basically dictates its operating state.
So going back to the factory analogy, if the workers in the gut go on strike because they are starved, or if the factory gets taken over by toxic rogue workers, the brain simply doesn't get the shipments it needs.
Exactly.
It doesn't get the serotonin and dopamine it desperately needs to function. It is left high and dry.
And the source material highlights recent research from Frontiers in Psychiatry that confirms this exact phenomenon.
Yeah.
When there are disruptions in this gut-brain communication, specifically when the microbiome changes and loses its diversity, there are immediate, severe, and measurable consequences for our mental health.
So it is not just a loose association, it is a direct causal relationship.
100%.
The notes also pull a fascinating piece of research from Loma Linda University that looked at this from the positive side, focusing on resilience.
Yes, the resilience data is amazing.
They found that people who have healthier, more diverse gut microbiomes actually exhibit stronger psychological resilience to stress.
And they have significantly lower incidences of depression.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, your emotional resilience isn't just about mental toughness.
No, it's not.
It isn't just about trying to think more positively or, pushing through a hard day with pure willpower.
Exactly. Your emotional resilience is deeply, inextricably tied to the biological resilience of the microscopic organisms living inside your colon.
That is just wild. And honestly, it takes so much of the guilt and the shame away from mental health struggles.
It really does. It shifts the blame.
Because if you are listening to this and you are feeling utterly depleted, unmotivated, or constantly hijacked by anxiety, society often tells you that it is a character flaw.
Right, like you just aren't trying hard enough.
Yeah, but it might literally be that your internal factory is shut down. You physically do not possess the biological fuel required to feel happy.
It shifts the focus entirely from moral failing to biological mechanics. which is an incredibly empowering realization.
Because you aren't broken, your ecosystem is just out of balance.
Precisely.
But that brings up a rather terrifying question. If this beautiful, delicate ecosystem of trillions of workers is responsible for keeping us mentally stable, what happens when that system fundamentally breaks down?
Well, that's where things get dark.
Because looking at the global mental health statistics from the WHO that we started with, it seems like everyone's factory is burning down at the exact same time.
Yeah, that breakdown has a specific clinical designation. It is called gut dysbiosis.
Gut dysbiosis. Okay.
Put simply, dysbiosis is a severe imbalance in the gut microbiota. It happens when the harmful microorganisms, like certain aggressive strains of bacteria, yeast, or fungi, overgrow.
Okay.
And they drastically outnumber the beneficial serotonin-producing bacteria.
So the toxic workers basically stage a hostile takeover of the factory floor.
Yes. And a 2024 study published in Nature Communications drew a very bright, unavoidable line between this gut dysbiosis and severe mental disorders.
Like clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder.
Exactly. They analyzed the gut microbiomes of thousands of individuals and found distinct microbial signatures, like specific patterns of dysbiosis that perfectly correlated with depressive symptoms.
Wow.
This is no longer fringe alternative science. It is verified, peer-reviewed biology.
And it suddenly makes so much sense of things we see in everyday medical practice. The notes point out the gastrointestinal disorders, things like irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, are incredibly frequently co-diagnosed with anxiety or depression.
They are.
For years, I just assumed the logic was, well, having IBS is stressful and embarrassing, so of course it makes you anxious.
Right. That was the prevailing medical assumption for decades.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the same underlying biological fire, the dysbiosis, is causing both issues simultaneously. The dysbiosis in the gut is creating physical distress, bloating, and altered motility in the intestines. And at the exact same time, the chemical fallout from that dysbiosis is traveling up the vagus nerve.
And creating profound emotional distress in the brain.
Exactly. They're twin symptoms of the exact same root cause.
Okay, I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least get some clarity here.
Sure.
Because I understand the vagus nerve acts as a communication highway, but the brain is supposed to be incredibly protected, right?
Yes, very protected.
We have this biological fortress called the blood-brain barrier. It sounds like a heavy vault door that keeps all the bad stuff circulating in our blood out of our gray matter.
That is correct.
So how is a physical problem in my stomach causing an inflammatory fire inside the vault?
That is the most critical mechanism to understand in this entire deep dive. You are completely right about the blood-brain barrier.
Okay.
It is a highly selective, semi-permeable border of specialized cells. Its entire evolutionary purpose is to protect the central nervous system from circulating toxins and pathogens.
Right.
But to understand how it breaks down, we have to look at what is happening in the gut first.
Okay, take us down to the microscopic level. What's happening?
When the gut is in a state of severe dysbiosis, it becomes inflamed. The beneficial bacteria that usually produce anti-inflammatory compounds are depleted.
So there's no one fighting the fire.
Exactly.
Eh.
And in their absence, the harmful bacteria begin producing high levels of endotoxins. One of the primary culprits is something called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS.
LPS. I feel like I've seen that term pop up in longevity and health span research a lot lately.
You probably have. LPS is a structural component of the outer membrane of certain harmful bacteria.
Okay.
When these bacteria die or multiply, they shed LPS into the gut. And LPS is incredibly inflammatory.
I see.
Now, a healthy gut has a thick mucosal lining and tight junctions between the intestinal cells to keep everything contained inside the digestive tract.
So the walls of the factory are solid. Nothing gets out.
Exactly. But chronic inflammation from LPS and dysbiosis wears down that mucosal layer over time.
Right.
Yeah, it triggers the release of a protein called zonulin, which literally pries open the tight junctions between the intestinal cells.
Oh, wow. So the walls of the factory develop microscopic cracks.
Yes. This is a condition commonly referred to as leaky gut or intestinal permeability. Now, these highly inflammatory endotoxins, like LPS, leak out of the digestive tract and spill directly into the bloodstream.
So now the fire has spread from the gut into the circulatory system. You just have inflammatory debris floating everywhere.
Correct. And as this highly inflammatory blood circulates up to the brain, it continuously bombards that protective vault door, the blood-brain barrier.
It's just hammering away at it.
Exactly. And over time, chronic systemic inflammation actually compromises the integrity of that barrier. The tight junctions of the blood-brain barrier begin to loosen.
The vault door gets pried open.
And once that happens, rogue inflammatory chemicals and even circulating immune cells cross over into the brain.
And what happens then?
This triggers the brain's own resident immune cells, called microglia. When microglia detect these intruders, they go on the offensive, creating a massive state of neuroinflammation.
You literally have an inflamed brain.
Yes.
So if I have severe dysbiosis and leaky gut, my brain is literally catching the inflammation from my stomach. The physical inflammation in the digestive tract translates directly into neuroinflammation.
That is exactly what is happening.
What does that actually feel like to the person experiencing it?
Well, the results of a brain on fire are devastating, and they present in a variety of ways. In the short term, it presents as cognitive impairment.
Like brain fog.
Exactly, that heavy, thick brain fog where you just can't focus, you can't remember names, and every mental task feels like wading through wet cement.
Yeah, I think almost everyone has experienced that feeling after a period of intense stress or like a terrible week of eating.
Exactly. It also presents as severe mood disorders, heightened anxiety, and an inability to regulate your emotions.
And what about long term?
Long term, this chronic neuroinflammation is catastrophic. The constant activation of those microglia cells actually damages surrounding neurons.
Oh, man.
It significantly increases the risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and severe cognitive decline.
So researchers are finding the smoking gun for things like Alzheimer's and severe clinical depression, not in the skull, but in the intestines.
Yes, they are.
That is terrifying. But at the same time, it is incredibly hopeful because it gives us a physical target. It gives us something tangible to fix.
Absolutely. It moves the problem out of the abstract, invisible realm of the mind and into the physical, manageable realm of cellular biology.
Which naturally leads us to the biggest question of this entire deep dive.
Right.
If gut dysbiosis is the root cause of this massive wave of systemic inflammation and mental health crises, what is causing the mass dysbiosis?
That is the million-dollar question.
Why is everyone's gut suddenly falling out of balance at the exact same time in human history?
Well, the notes are completely unequivocal on this point. While stress and antibiotics definitely play a role, the primary culprit, the grand saboteur of the human gut microbiome, is our modern diet.
Okay.
Specifically, the astronomical rise and ubiquitous presence of ultra-processed foods, or UPFs.
The dietary saboteur. I want to spend some real time defining exactly what we mean by ultra-processed foods.
It should.
Because I think a lot of people assume that term just means, a drive-through cheeseburger or a candy bar. But it is so much more insidious and widespread than that.
It is deeply, deeply embedded in our food supply. Ultra-processed foods are industrial formulations made mostly or entirely from substances extracted from foods.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning they often have little to no intact whole food remaining in them. They are chemically engineered to be hyperpalatable.
Meaning they are literally designed in a laboratory to bypass your brain's natural fullness cues. Like satiety signals never fire, so you physically cannot stop eating them.
Exactly. The food industry spends billions engineering the perfect crunch, the perfect mouthfeel, and the precise ratio of sugar, fat, and salt to trigger massive dopamine dumps in the brain.
Wow.
But to achieve this, these foods are packed with abnormal levels of refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, synthetic preservatives, colorings, and highly inflammatory industrial seed oils like canola or soybean oil.
And we are talking about obvious things like potato chips, sodas, and frozen microwave dinners, right?
Sure, those are the obvious ones.
But looking at the sources, it also includes things marketed as healthy, like most packaged granola bars, many store-bought whole wheat breads that have like 30 ingredients in them.
Yes, flavored yogurts, oat milks loaded with gums.
Practically anything in the center aisles of the grocery store with an ingredient list that reads like a chemistry textbook.
To give you an idea of how devastating these ingredients are, let's look at emulsifiers for a second.
Okay.
These are chemicals added to UPFs to improve texture and extend shelf life, basically to keep the oil and water mixed together. In the gut, these emulsifiers act like harsh chemical detergents. They literally scrub away and degrade that protective mucosal lining we talked about earlier.
Oh, wow. So they directly cause leaky gut.
They do.
So it's food that never rots on the shelf because it's so chemically altered that bacteria won't even touch it. What happens when we put that sterile, chemical-laden material into a digestive tract that relies entirely on a diverse community of bacteria to function?
Well, the biological fallout is deeply alarming, and the epidemiological data backs this up flawlessly.
What does the data say?
The notes highlight a pivotal 2023 study published in JAMA Psychiatry, which is one of the most respected medical journals in the world.
Okay.
They tracked the diets and mental health outcomes of thousands of individuals. And they found that individuals who consume diets high in ultra-processed foods were 33% more likely to develop depression compared to those who ate a diet rich in whole unprocessed foods.
Wait, a 33% spike in depression risk? That is a massive statistical jump
Yeah.
just from changing the raw materials entering the digestive tract.
It is a staggering correlation.
Yeah.
And researchers at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health corroborated this by showing exactly how it happens at the cellular level.
How does it happen?
Ultra-processed foods directly and immediately increase systemic body inflammation, which then crosses the blood-brain barrier and impairs brain function.
Let's visualize this because I want to make sure the mechanics are crystal clear for everyone listening.
Sure.
Imagine someone eats a neon orange, highly processed cheese cracker. Walk me through the journey of that cracker and how it acts as a double-edged sword for the gut factory.
Okay, let's trace the cracker. First, that cracker contains virtually zero dietary fiber.
Right.
Fiber is the primary food source for your beneficial bacteria strains, like bifidobacterium. Because you are starving them, the good workers die off, drastically reducing the diversity of the microbiome.
Okay, so the good guys starve. That is the first edge of the sword.
Got it. The second edge is that the cracker is loaded with refined carbohydrates, high fructose corn syrup, and industrial seed oils.
The bad stuff.
Exactly. As that digested slurry hits the intestines, it acts as high-octane fuel for the opportunistic, harmful bacteria strains, like certain firmicutes or pathogenic yeast.
Wow.
They feast on the sugar, multiply rapidly, and start churning out those inflammatory LPS endotoxins we talked about.
So you are simultaneously starving the good workers who manufacture your serotonin while throwing an all-you-can-eat buffet for the toxic workers who produce inflammation.
It is the perfect biological storm.
You halt the production of mood-stabilizing chemicals while flooding the bloodstream with agents of neuroinflammation.
Precisely. And this mechanism explains why we are seeing such a dramatic shift in public health across the board.
Yeah.
But the notes highlight an angle to this that is, frankly, heartbreaking. We really need to look at how this UPF-heavy diet is impacting children.
Yes, I'm so glad we are hitting this because here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean it completely blew my mind.
It is a vital subsection of the data.
We are currently seeing an absolute explosion in childhood anxiety, ADHD diagnoses, and severe behavioral issues in recent years. And the cultural narrative has almost entirely blamed, screens, social media, or a lack of discipline.
Right. And while environment definitely plays a role, the biological data points to a massive underlying physiological driver.
Which is the food?
Yes. The notes cite a profound 2021 study published in The Guardian that focused on this exact issue. They found that children who consume diets high in ultra-processed foods are significantly more likely to struggle with anxiety, ADHD, and severe behavioral regulation issues.
Which makes sense when you think about the standard kid's lunchbox or a typical school lunch today.
Seriously.
It is almost exclusively ultra-processed. Packaged fruit snacks that are literally just dyed corn syrup, highly processed deli meats full of nitrates, artificially colored crackers, juice boxes.
It is everywhere.
We are practically feeding them biological chaos and then, punishing them when they can't sit still or regulate their emotions.
And we must understand a crucial biological distinction here. A child's brain is not just a smaller version of an adult brain.
Right.
It is actively, rapidly developing. Synaptogenesis is occurring. Millions of neural pathways are being formed and pruned every single day.
Wow.
The foundational architecture of their dopamine and serotonin receptors, their emotional regulation centers, it is all being built in real time.
So an adult eating a bag of heavily processed chips might feel sluggish, get some brain fog, or feel a bit down.
Right.
But a child eating that same bag of chips is introducing severe chemical interference right in the middle of a massive brain construction project.
Exactly. The neuroinflammation caused by those artificial dyes and massive sugar loads directly disrupts normal neural development.
That is so sad.
And furthermore, the ensuing gut dysbiosis means their little bodies aren't producing the baseline serotonin and dopamine needed to feel calm, secure, and focused in the first place.
So the behavioral issues we are seeing might not be psychological deficits or behavioral problems at all.
No, they might simply be the frantic symptoms of a developing brain that is practically drowning in dietary inflammation.
That completely shatters the way we look at parenting and pediatric health.
It really does change the paradigm.
It means a child's meltdown in the grocery store or their inability to focus in math class might literally be tied to the chemical preservatives in their breakfast cereal rather than an inherent flaw in their personality.
Yes.
It really makes you realize how much physiological control we inadvertently hand over to the food industry.
It does. It highlights the urgent, undeniable need to look at our pantries and our grocery carts, not just as sources of cheap calories, but as the foundational medicine or the foundational poison for our mental health.
Okay, so the picture we have painted so far is intense.
Very intense.
The modern ultra-processed diet is acting like chemical defoliants, napalming the gut microbiome, which creates leaky gut, which inflames the brain, leading to the massive mental health crisis we see today.
That is the grim reality, yes.
It is a dark reality. But the beauty of this deep dive, and the exact reason we pulled these specific notes, is that the science doesn't leave us stranded.
Not at all.
It provides a highly actionable, incredibly specific biological blueprint for how to rebuild this ecosystem.
That is the most encouraging aspect of microbiome research. The gut is incredibly resilient.
Really?
Yes, it responds rapidly to changes in input. You can actually start altering the microbial balance and reducing inflammation in a matter of days.
Well, let's transition into the solutions then. If the house is on fire, what is the hose?
Great analogy.
The notes lay out 6 highly actionable steps, starting with 4 specific dietary interventions, but it doesn't start with what to add. It starts with what to remove.
Right. Step 1 is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite for everything else.
Yeah.
Eliminate processed foods.
Okay.
You cannot build a healthy ecosystem while you are actively pouring toxins into it. You must systematically cut out foods containing artificial preservatives, synthetic sweeteners, and those highly inflammatory seed oils.
I want to upgrade the garden analogy we used earlier. Because if your gut is a complex garden and you want it to thrive, step 1 isn't just pulling weeds.
Right.
UPFs aren't just weeds. UPFs are like spraying chemical defoliants across the entire yard. They alter the pH of the soil so that nothing good can grow.
That is a perfect visualization.
Step 1 is simply to stop spraying the poison. You have to replace those empty inflammatory calories with nutrient-dense, single-ingredient whole foods.
That is exactly right. And once the chemical assault has stopped, you need to actively rebuild the workforce and provide them with raw materials.
Okay, so what's next?
This brings us to the next steps. Incorporating fermented foods, which provide probiotics, and focusing on high-quality fiber, which acts as prebiotics.
Prebiotics and probiotics.
Yes. And we need to deeply understand the biological synergy between these two, because people constantly confuse them.
They really do. Everyone hears the word biotics on yogurt commercials and assumes it's all the same magic dust. So break down the mechanical difference between pro and pre for us. Let's start with probiotics.
Probiotics are the live beneficial bacteria themselves. When you consume unpasteurized fermented foods, things like traditional sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, or high-quality kombucha,
Right.
you are directly introducing billions of new, living, healthy workers into your gut factory.
Okay.
You are actively repopulating the microbiome with the specific organisms, like lactobacillus, that reduce systemic inflammation and help manufacture serotonin.
So eating a forkful of raw sauerkraut is basically dropping a parachute team of highly trained biological medics directly into the gut to take back the factory floor.
It is a great visual, but those live bacteria are living organisms. They're going to a war zone, and they need a constant supply of food to survive, multiply, and do their jobs.
Right.
That is where prebiotics come in. Prebiotics are specific types of dietary fiber found in whole plant foods, cruciferous vegetables, dark leafy greens, berries, and legumes.
And the interesting thing about this fiber is that we don't actually digest it ourselves, right?
Correct. The human body lacks the enzymes required to break down this complex fiber. It passes through our stomach and upper intestines completely intact.
So what's its purpose then?
Its evolutionary purpose is specifically to travel down to the colon and serve as the primary food supply for our gut bacteria.
So if the fermented probiotics are the workers in our manufacturing plant, the prebiotic fiber is the raw material they need to run the machines.
Precisely. And here is where the real magic happens. When those beneficial microbes consume that fiber, they ferment it.
Okay.
And as a byproduct of that fermentation, they produce incredibly healing compounds called short-chain fatty acids. The most important one is called butyrate.
Butyrate. Why is that compound so important?
Butyrate is the ultimate healer of the gut lining. It provides the primary energy source for the cells lining your colon.
Oh, wow.
Furthermore, butyrate actively repairs the tight junctions we talked about earlier. It seals up the leaky gut.
It closes the vault door.
Exactly. It stops the LPS endotoxins from escaping into the bloodstream, effectively cutting off the source of the systemic inflammation at the root.
So if you only take a probiotic supplement or eat a little yogurt, but your diet has zero fiber, you are sending a parachute team into a factory with absolutely no food or raw materials.
Right, they have nothing to work with.
They will simply starve and die off. You have to have both.
You need the synergy of both, and the clinical outcomes of this combination are remarkable.
What do the studies show?
The notes cite a 2024 study published in Gut Microbes, which tracked cohorts over several months. They found that individuals who consumed a diet high in both complex fiber and fermented foods exhibited significantly lower rates of clinical depression.
Wow.
They had massively reduced anxiety scores and measurably less cognitive decline compared to control groups.
It is genuinely amazing that the clinical prescription for lower anxiety and improved mood isn't necessarily a synthetic pill. It's like a bowl of sauerkraut and some broccoli. It is almost too simple, which is probably why it gets overlooked in our hyper-medicalized quick-fix society.
We definitely have a systemic bias against interventions that don't come in a pharmaceutical bottle. But the biological impact of fiber and fermented foods on the brain's chemistry is more profound and certainly more sustainable than many synthetic interventions.
All right, so we've stopped the chemical assault, we've brought in the workers with fermented foods, and we are feeding them fiber to produce butyrate and seal the leaky gut.
Correct.
But earlier, you mentioned that the vault door, the blood-brain barrier, was already breached and the brain itself was inflamed.
Yes, the neuroinflammation.
Do the gut bacteria go up there to fix it, or do we need a different mechanism to put out the fire that is already burning in the brain?
That is an excellent question. The bacteria largely stay in the gut, working on systemic inflammation. To aggressively target the inflammation already raging inside the brain, we need a different biological tool.
Okay.
That brings us to step 4 in the nutritional blueprint. Prioritize omega-3 fatty acids.
Omega-3s, we hear about them for heart health all the time, but how do they specifically fix the brain?
Well, you want to focus specifically on the marine-based omega-3s, EPA and DHA. These are predominantly found in wild-caught fatty fish like salmon, sardines, or through high-quality fish oil supplements.
Okay, got it.
While fiber and probiotics work primarily in the gut to stop new inflammation from starting, EPA and DHA excel at crossing the blood-brain barrier.
So they can actually get inside the vault.
Yes. Once inside the brain, omega-3s act as powerful anti-inflammatory agents. They interact directly with those overactive microglia cells we discussed.
The brain's immune cells that were causing the neuroinflammation.
Exactly. Omega-3s practically signal the microglia to stand down and stop attacking.
So they are like the elite cleanup crew for the brain.
Exactly. The notes reference a compelling study from Frontiers in Neurology demonstrating that omega-3s specifically target and resolve neuroinflammation.
How do they do that physically?
They literally incorporate themselves into the cell membranes of neurons, repairing their structural integrity. By physically calming the brain down, they rapidly improve mood, sharpen cognitive function, and actively reduce the clinical symptoms of anxiety and depression.
So they are the ultimate brain-healing nutrient.
It really is.
So the dietary blueprint is incredibly clear and scientifically rigorous. Eliminate the UPF defoliants, eat fiber to provide the raw materials, eat fermented foods to replenish the workforce, and get your omega-3s to put out the fire in your brain.
That's the formula.
But this deep dive doesn't stop at the dinner plate, because human beings aren't just chemical processing machines. We are also electrical, nervous system-driven organisms.
This is a vital transition. Diet rebuilds the physical, cellular infrastructure of the gut.
Right.
But if you are constantly bombarding your body with extreme psychological stress, you will continue to trigger the HPA axis. You will continue to flood the system with cortisol.
And eventually, that chronic cortisol will just tear down the healthy microbiome and the mucosal lining you just worked so hard to build. Exactly. Right. You cannot out-eat a lifestyle of chronic, terrifying, unregulated stress. So what are the lifestyle integrations? The sources list external practices designed to manage the nervous system.
Yes. Step 5 focuses on managing the electrical and nervous system inputs of the body through 2 specific practices, grounding and breathwork.
Let's start with grounding, also known as earthing. Simply putting your bare feet on the actual earth, dirt, grass, sand, unpainted concrete.
Right.
It sounds a bit woo-woo to a lot of people. Is there actual science behind this?
There is actually.
Mm.
There is a growing field of biophysics dedicated to it.
Really? Tell me about that.
Well, the Earth maintains a subtle negative electrical surface charge. Modern humans, wearing rubber-soled shoes and living indoors all day, are largely insulated from this.
Okay.
And our bodies, constantly undergoing metabolic processes and dealing with inflammation, build up an excess of free radicals.
Free radicals, right.
These are positively charged reactive oxygen species that damage tissue.
So we are basically walking around carrying a positive inflammatory charge.
Exactly. When you make direct skin contact with the Earth, the theory is that your body absorbs negatively charged electrons.
Oh, I see.
These electrons act as a natural, systemic antioxidant, neutralizing the positively charged free radicals. It has a subtle but clinically measurable anti-inflammatory effect on the body, lowering overall physiological stress.
That is fascinating. It's literally discharging biological static.
Exactly.
Well, when it comes to immediately altering your nervous system state, the notes highlight breath work as the ultimate manual override.
Oh, breathwork is profound because it interfaces directly with the anatomy we've been discussing.
Oh, so?
Intentional, slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing directly stimulates the vagus nerve.
The massive fiber optic cable connecting the gut and the brain.
Yes. When you expand your diaphragm, it puts physical pressure on the vagus nerve. This mechanical stimulation causes the nerve to release a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine.
And what does acetylcholine do?
It immediately acts on the heart, physically slowing your heart rate down.
Wow, it's like pulling the emergency brake on a speeding car.
Precisely. It sends a massive, undeniable signal from the body up to the brain saying, "We are safe, there's no predator, you can turn the alarm off."
And the brain listens.
It does. It immediately halts the production of cortisol and shifts the entire nervous system out of the sympathetic fight or flight state and into the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
Which means your body can finally divert energy back to repairing the gut lining and manufacturing serotonin instead of preparing to run for your life.
Exactly. It actively lowers anxiety at the biochemical level and protects the gut from stress-induced inflammation.
That's incredible.
And mastering that nervous system regulation leads perfectly into the final, most crucial lifestyle step.
Sleep.
Step 6. The notes refer to sleep as our absolute human superpower, aiming for 7 to 9 hours of quality, uninterrupted sleep every single night.
Uninterrupted is key.
And again, this isn't just about feeling rested. This is a deeply mechanical biological requirement. Sleep is the foundation upon which all physical and mental repair is built. If we tie this back to the physiological cascade we discussed at the very beginning.
Right. Stress produces cortisol. Cortisol destroys the gut lining. Leaky gut causes neuroinflammation.
Yes. Deep sleep is the physiological antidote to that entire cascade.
Walk us through what happens to the brain and the gut when we actually get deep sleep.
During deep, slow-wave sleep, your body's cortisol levels plummet to their lowest point in the 24-hour cycle.
Okay.
With the stress hormone offline, the body shifts entirely into repair mode. In the brain, a fascinating mechanism called the glymphatic system opens up.
The glymphatic system.
Yes, cerebrospinal fluid literally washes through the brain tissue, clearing out the toxic byproducts and inflammatory debris that accumulated during the day.
It's like the street sweepers coming out at 3 a.m. to clean the city.
That is exactly what it is. And simultaneously, down in the digestive tract, the gut microbiome uses this downtime to undergo essential repair. The intestinal cells regenerate, and the microbial populations stabilize.
It is an incredibly tight, closed-loop system. Think about it.
It really is.
If you don't sleep, your cortisol is extremely high the next day. High cortisol wrecks your gut lining, erect gut dysbioses, and stops making serotonin.
Right.
Without serotonin, you feel incredibly anxious and depressed. And being anxious and depressed means, well, you can't fall asleep the next night.
The cycle just aggressively feeds on itself.
It is a devastating downward spiral.
It is. But the empowering truth is that the reverse is equally powerful.
How does the upward spiral work?
By systematically improving your diet, eliminating the UPFs, and adding fiber and ferments, you heal your gut. A healed gut efficiently produces massive amounts of serotonin and its precursor, melatonin.
Oh, and melatonin helps you sleep.
Exactly. Those chemicals allow you to fall asleep easily and sleep deeply. Deep sleep clears brain inflammation and lowers cortisol, which further heals the gut.
Wow.
It becomes a beautiful, self-sustaining upward spiral of physical and mental resilience.
I want to pause right here and speak directly to you, the listener. What stands out to you in all of this?
It's a lot to process.
It is,
Yeah.
because for a lot of people, hearing advice like, take a few deep breaths, eat some broccoli, and get to bed on time sounds almost insultingly simple.
Right. It doesn't sound like medicine.
It sounds like something your grandmother would tell you, not a cutting-edge medical breakthrough for mental health. But we have just spent an hour walking through the rigorous, peer-reviewed cellular mechanics of exactly how these seemingly simple actions alter the chemical, electrical, and biological reality of your stomach and your brain.
It is the ultimate validation of ancient fundamental wisdom through the lens of modern high-resolution science.
That's a great way to put it.
The biological mechanisms, the vagus nerve signaling, the butyrate production, the microglial activation are incredibly complex, but the daily interventions required to master them are remarkably accessible.
Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've just been on. We started by completely dismantling the centuries-old myth that mental health is just a localized brain problem or psychological weakness.
Right.
The mind and the body are intrinsically, biologically, and anatomically linked.
We have mapped out how gut dysbiosis, which is largely driven by a modern diet saturated with ultra-processed, chemical-laden foods, creates a massive wave of systemic endotoxins.
Which leads to disaster.
Yes. This inflammation destroys the gut lining, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and creates neuroinflammation, directly leading to cognitive decline and severe mental health challenges like clinical depression and anxiety.
But the incredible hopeful news is that you have the immediate power to fix it.
You do.
By consciously choosing whole foods, feeding your bacterial workforce with complex fiber, repopulating the factory with fermented foods, repairing your brain with marine omega-3s, and manually regulating your nervous system through breathwork and sleep, you literally have the tangible power to transform your biological and emotional reality.
It shifts the locus of control back to the individual. The power to drastically transform your mental health trajectory might quite literally be sitting on your dinner plate and in your daily habits.
So true.
You are not a victim of a broken brain. You are the CEO of a complex, microscopic ecosystem.
Which brings me to a final, slightly mind-bending thought to leave you with, a concept to just chew on as you go about the rest of your day.
Let's hear it.
We have just established, through hard biological data, that the trillions of bacteria living in your gut are actively manufacturing the neurotransmitters that dictate your mood, your anxiety levels, and your emotional resilience.
Yes, they are.
They are literally pulling the chemical levers of your brain.
They are heavily fundamentally influencing the biological reality of how you perceive and experience the world around you.
So, if our gut bacteria are the ones dictating how we feel, how much of what we consider to be our unique personality is actually us? Right. And how much of it is just the microscopic ecosystem we happen to be hosting? When you suddenly crave sugar, or when you feel inexplicably unmotivated, or when you feel incredibly resilient in the face of stress, are you actually controlling those feelings, or are your microbes running the show?
That is a profound question. It fundamentally blurs the line between our human identity and our microbial biology.
It really does. Keep questioning the things you assume are normal, keep exploring the miraculous machinery that is your body, and take care of your microbes. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.